In the last video, we learned how we could switch between a dark theme and a light theme based on the user's system settings. In this video, we'll allow the user to switch between a dark theme and a light theme by clicking on different radio inputs. So we'll add a dark and a light radio input in this video. Also, we'll update our classes like the green class. We'll call it something like a light green for our light green theme. And then we'll also create one for a dark theme as well. Let's update our main style sheet. Within our main style sheet, we could reuse these classes, the red theme, the green theme, and the blue theme, and we could prefix it with the mode we want, like the light mode. And we'll set up a dark mode, but now we need to add the color scheme here and set it to light, and we already have that right here. I'll add that within the light red and just remove the dark. And that is set up for the light red. Copy that and we'll set up one for the dark red now. Remove the light and replace it with dark. And now we have a class for the dark mode red palette. Now we need to set up the green and the blue. I'll add a snippet. So there's one for the light blue, dark blue, light green, and the dark green. Now we need to do some cleanup work within our HTML. We don't need this color scheme within the HTML because we're always setting one of these classes here below. One of them are always being set by default. So we don't need that up here. And then we also don't need a theme within the HTML anymore. And we don't need this. We can clean that up. I'll leave this because we always want to set our button overrides for all the themes. So I'll set that at a global scale. Before we implement this within our pages component, let's test it in the browser. When you first load the application, you'll notice that there's no theme being applied, and that's fine. That's because we removed the color palette from the main HTML. And we'll set it up where this class is always set and there's going to always be a color theme being applied. We'll resolve that shortly. But for now, let's test it. So what we'll do is we'll enter in the light green manually into the class here. And we see a green, that's good. And then we'll test the dark for the green. And we have a dark mode. Now that we set up our color palettes, let's add a couple radio inputs for the light and dark mode so the user can switch between the light and dark mode. Let's start inside of our pages component HTML. And right below the select a theme, we'll add in two more radio inputs, one for the light and one for the dark. If you've been following along from the beginning, you'll notice we're doing exactly what we did in a prior video when we're setting up our theme colors. We're pulling in this Angular Material radio buttons, and how we're pulling that in is inside of the pages TS file. If I scroll up here, we're bringing in the radio module. We're importing that from Angular Material, and we're adding that within the imports. And now we should see the two radio inputs in our browser. Let's test this. Okay, we have a select a mode and we have our two radio inputs. Now let's add the functionality. So when the user selects a input, we want to call our theme service. We'll set that up next. Like we did with the color theme inputs, we'll add a change event calling our theme service, and we already have a method called set mode, and we'll pass in the value. So we'll do the same thing that we're doing with our theme colors, and I'll add a change event to the radio group. And whenever the user selects a mode, we will call the set mode, passing in the value. Let's make sure we're pulling our theme service into the TS file. So I'll open that up. And here within the constructor, we're pulling in the theme service here. And I have it set to public so I could call it from within the template. So you want to make sure you're bringing in your service within the TS file. And if we look at the theme service next, we have this public property, the mode, and we could set it to either light or dark. and by default we're setting it to light. And you'll notice we're using the Angular signal, the Angular computed, and the Angular effect. What's nice about this is if the mode gets updated or the color gets updated, this fires off, returning us the current theme. Whenever this gets updated, this side effect kicks off. And what this side effect does is it updates our main HTML, the class attribute, with the current theme. Currently, we're just storing the color to local storage. And what's nice about doing that is if the user comes back to the application, we will automatically set their color and their mode for them. Now, how do we update the mode or the color? Well, we have these setters down here, the set mode and the set color. So if we pass in the set mode, light or dark, we set this property with the value. So that's how this gets set up here. Now we need to make some changes. One, we need to get rid of this. Before we only had the color, and that's why we returned the color and set this to the color. But now we have the mode and the color. We could get rid of this. And this was just a temporary placeholder. And now this will return something like this, a dark, and then pick whatever color like green. So we'll get back a class name like that. That's what gets added to the class attribute within the HTML tag. Also, I would like to make a change within this constructor. This name right here doesn't make much sense to me. I'm going to call it something like color, since this is storing the color. Then also let's rename this to theme color. And we'll update the constant in a second. And then I'll rename this to color and color. And what this is doing, it checks to see if there is a color. If there is, set this color here to whatever color that is coming out of our local storage. Now I want to do something for the mode as well. So I'll add a constant here for that. I'll add that right at the top here. I'll paste that in. So now we have one for our mode that comes out of local storage. And then I'll do a if check on that. So our conditional is if there is a mode coming out of our local storage, set this mode to that mode, light or dark. We'll update our constants now, since that's giving us an error. I'll rename this to theme color. And then also I'll remove the class and just call it color. And we'll create one for our theme mode. So I'll just rename this. And this will be mode. Now there's one more change we want to make. We want to update this and add also a set for the mode. We're doing this for the color. I'll rename this. So color, and then I'll copy this, paste it, and then the next one's going to be for the mode. And this mode. And that's it for our service. Make sure we save it. And this is what you want your service to look like. And by the way, you get this off the repository if you want to double check your changes. And let's view this in the browser. Now, when we first load the application, you'll notice that the class is being set to light green by default. And that's our default settings within the service. So we have it set to a light as a default and a green as a default. And you could easily change that by updating the service. And then also you'll notice that these radio inputs are not being set by default. We'll take care of that in a second. But now if we select the dark mode, our class updates and our application switches over to a dark mode. And that should work for all three colors. And now if we switch to a dark mode and let's say we leave it on blue and we refresh it, our local storage sets it to dark blue automatically for us. And our application is set to a dark blue theme. And if we look at our local storage now, you'll see a theme color and a theme mode. Now let's take care of this last issue here. So if we are currently in a blue and a dark mode, we want this dark mode to be selected by default when the page first loads. Back inside of our pages HTML, we'll update our radio group, and I'll add it right here at the beginning. And we'll two-way bind it using the ng model, and we'll create a property within our TS file called selected mode. Save this, and let's jump into the TS file. We'll go to the top and make sure we're bringing in the forms module. And if you don't bring that in, then you'll have issues using this ng model. And then also you want to make sure you're bringing it into your imports as well. Then we need to add in the selected mode property. And this is the property that we'll bind to. Then also when this component is built, we want to set it like we're doing with the selected color. So set this selected mode to whatever our services mode is set to. Let's see what it looks like in the browser now. And now if we refresh the page, and we are currently in a dark mode and our input is automatically updated or selected, and that should work for our light mode as well. And our light mode remains selected because we're using the light mode. And that's how you add a light and a dark theme to your application. Now in the next video, let's close out module 1 and go over everything we covered in this module.